Hey Arnau, so it's your last set. Let's take a look at what you've done in these two task ones and task two. We've got the flow chart with tea leaves. So let's see how you handled this one. The diagram provided illustrates the process involved in making 5 different types of tea, specifically white tea, green tea, oolong tea, black tea, and lastly scented tea. Overall, the the tea production starts from the fresh tea leaves and then splits in 5 different lines, which one including from 2 up to 5 different steps before the final product is created. All right. Your first sentence was great. The overview for me needed work. I stumbled with it not only because I'm not good at reading aloud, but because there was some awkwardness here. Okay, it starts from the fresh tea leaves. This wasn't particularly helpful. And then this was unclear, including from 2 lines. So, and then this which one was grammatically wrong. So it just had some issues. So let me give you some ideas about what your overview could have been here. So you could have said overall, white tea has the least stages, while oolong has the most. And all the tea types except for white can be used to make scented tea. So that for me would have been a very, very good overview. Okay. So you're simply, it's just like when we do other types of charts. Okay. This has the most steps, this has the least, and then you tell me something else of interest. Okay. So that's how I would have done it. Is it the only thing you could have done for an overview? No, of course not. We all know that. But for me, I think these are the points that are worth mentioning in an overview. Okay. So let's keep going. As mentioned before, the first common step for all sorts of tea is the sorting and cleaning of the fresh tea leaves. From here, the production line is divided in 4 different ways. The first and quickest is the one required to make white tea, which only needs to steam and then dry the tea leaves before the beverage is ready. Fine. This is awkward in regard to the green. There's a lot of confusion with so I really, even native speakers get this wrong. Believe me, I see it wrong all the time. This feels a little weird to me. How about with regard to, which I think would have been a better choice here. So with regard to, and get rid of the, you don't need that. That's the other thing that's making it weird. So with regard to green, oolong, and black tea, you don't need manufacturing production. Just pick the word production. One more time. With regard to green, oolong, and black tea, production is followed by withering the already sorted and cleaned tea leaves. Then, from 4 to 5 steps involving, I don't know why you have that from, so get rid of it and say then 4 to 5 steps involving the shaping of such leaves, their fermentation, cooking, and finally drying are differently mixed in regard to the respective tea type. Okay, tea recipe. Now, because I know this chart really well, I think I know what you're trying to say. I do think, however, you've tried to put too much information. You've tried to kind of condense too much stuff into one sentence. The result is not being able to really clearly understand what's happening here. Now, remember, the goal, okay, like an ideal band 9, the goal would be if somebody reading your response could actually draw it, at least an approximation of it based on what you're saying. With a sentence like that, it's absolutely impossible because I have no idea where the fermentation is happening, the cooking, who is being cooked, what is being cooked, what is being fermented. It's all a big mush. So that creates some imprecision and some lack of clarity. Okay. Okay. Then where are you? Finally, a scented tea can be made by drying, scenting, and finally cooling. You said finally twice in one sentence. Don't love that. Any green, black, or oolong tea. All right, so let's go back to this. We talked about your overview extensively, and we talked about what you did here. So what I would have recommended is what you did initially, which is find the commonalities. So one way to do this is you could have said, that the next 3 tea types, green, oolong, and black, all share the same second step and last step. more specifically, withering and drying, okay, respectively, okay? You could have said that. Then all you have to do is just kind of deal with this stuff in here. So you could have said that all three may be rolled, okay? They may be rolled, but prior to this, green tea must be pan-fried, steamed, or fired. Oolong can also be shaken, and black can also be cut. Okay, so you see what I did? And then you're done with green because you've already talked about the drying. All right, I know there's an or there. Really, not a big deal. Then you can say oolong and black have another step, which is fermentation. For oolong, this is short, while for black, it is full. Oolong is the only one that has an additional step prior to drying, which is pan frying. And that's how I would do it, okay? I mean, not only like that, but that is one way to do it. So you're finding these differences, you're finding the similarities, you're grouping just the way you do with other tasks, okay? And then this was fine. So I thought it was okay, but I gotta say, I don't love it. I didn't love your overview, and I really didn't love this paragraph here very much. It wasn't your greatest task one. I've seen you write other ones, but you've got another one. So let's see what you did in that one, as well as your task two. All right, so let's keep going now. Let's take a look at your task two. All right, this is the one about moving to regional locations. Let's see. In recent decades, many economists and politicians have studied the possible benefits and drawbacks as the result of corporations moving from large urban areas to regional spots. Okay. I think maybe, I don't know. This felt weird to me. And drawbacks. I'm not really sure what I would have preferred here. But let's keep going. Maybe it'll come to me later. Okay. Such studies have predicted that regional economies and their individuals would greatly benefit from it. However, the environment of such locations could be damaged. All right, I gotta read this whole thing again. Let me try it from the beginning. In recent decades, many economists and politicians have studied the possible benefits and drawbacks as a result of corporations. No, you know what? Which result? That would have felt a lot better. Which result from corporations moving to from large urban areas to regional spots? Better. Such studies have predicted that regional economies and their individuals would greatly benefit from this, not it. I want to say this because you're referring to a whole situation, okay? However, the environment of such locations could be damaged unless greener practices were established. Good. This essay will discuss the advantages and disadvantages of companies relocating from big cities to regional areas. Great. Okay. So it was just a couple of little things, and the fact that they were missing, that they were wrong, created some awkwardness, like this here. Okay, which result from would have been much better. And then I think instead of it, you should have had this here, and that would have been better. I'm glad that you took my advice, and it says what are the drawbacks, and you don't tell me that they're going to outweigh, one is going to outweigh the other. You just tell me that you're going to discuss the disadvantages and advantages, exactly what you're supposed to do. On one hand, the establishment of larger companies in rural areas would represent a boost for local and we don't really call it rustic. I guess you can call it rural economies. That's a better word. Which mainly live from primary industries such as agriculture or fishing. The results of a study conducted by the North Sydney University predicted an increase of 60% employment in areas like Central Coast or Margaret River, where the main business activity nowadays is tourism and livestock farming. I don't understand this. So the results of the study predicted an increase if what were to happen? If companies moved there, if a particular company moved there. So I like that you use the statistic. It's an extra piece of support, but I can't say that it's entirely clear. They predicted an increase of 60% of employment in areas where the main business is this. Okay, but it's just not clear. Like if companies were to move, if 5 companies moved, if Pfizer, if Google, if I don't know. So it's just not really clear what you're talking about. Okay. Moreover, the relocation of big corporations would create new habitats in the cities for startups to thrive in the national market. I don't understand that. Moreover, the relocation of big corporations would create new habitats in the cities for startups to thrive in the national market. Okay. Another study by NSU concluded that 40% of startups in Australian cities failed to flourish after the first year due to a highly competitive market. Okay. So I think I know where you're going with this, but as you can see, I had to read it twice to really understand. So what you're saying is with larger corporations out of the picture, it allows smaller, newer, emerging companies to, to find a place to kind of set up shop, as it were. So I think this is what you're trying to say, although it wasn't really clearly written. You can see I had to read it twice. So yeah, I needed a little work. Okay. Now we don't say on the other side. We say on the other hand. Remember, I told you in our last set, on the one hand, on the other hand. Or you can even say on one hand, but it has to be hand, not side. Those who argue against governments pushing companies to move out of rural areas have a point. Big corporations are known nowadays for their usual lack of eco-friendly practices in order to maximize their profits. Greenpeace Australia reported in 2023 that 40% of carbon dioxide emissions produced in the country came from large enterprises such as Amazon, Woolworths, or Hungry Jack's. The relocation of these CO2 emission giants would represent a big danger for the environment in those areas. All right, so really you only have one piece of proof against companies moving? So here you told me a couple of different things. You said that it would increase employment, and you said that it would allow space for new emerging companies to grow. But here you really only had one. So you can even see in terms of the length. Yeah, and I don't really love that. I really do suggest that if you have 2 ideas for one paragraph, you should have 2 ideas for the other. This did feel like it was less developed. Okay. And remember, that is something that is looked at under task achievement. I mean, is somebody going to be a stickler and be like, oh, okay, here's 1.5 ideas, but here there's 2. Let's give this person a 6. No, it's a little more sophisticated than that. It's a little more holistic. But, someone reading it might be like, this one really was more fully developed than this. Okay. It comes down to that. The examiner might say that, and that might affect your score. So, to conclude, it is clear that local economies and worker communities could benefit from large companies being relocated to countryside areas, while some space would be created for struggling startups to flourish. Nevertheless, some negative impacts in these local ecosystems could be produced unless greener policies are put in practice for those companies, a matter that companies should not fail to address. Okay, so let me tell you one last thing here. You have this rather detailed conclusion. It's about 5 lines long, yes? And it's nicely written. But if you take a look at your body paragraph is only 1 line longer. So that right there, just like visually, should provide a clue to you that you've probably underdeveloped your body paragraph and you've probably overwritten your conclusion. Now, what you want to remember is that you're going to improve your task achievement score not by writing a long, drawn out conclusion, but instead by really developing your body paragraphs. That's where you pick up, I don't want to say the word points because there are no points to be gained, but you do potentially earn a higher score in task achievement. Okay. So I would have focused more on developing this, on maybe giving another drawback for this measure, and then I would have had a much shorter, much briefer conclusion. Okay. So I know you asked in your email about your score. I liked your vocabulary. I liked your grammar, and Yeah, I liked those things very much. Your grammar and your vocabulary were nice. They were very strong. So as an examiner, I would probably give you a good solid score for that. Um, I I have one concern about your task achievement because of what I mentioned. Again, it would really depend on how the examiner decided to look at it, but I do feel like the difference is pretty big here. Like I'm actually going to count lines for a minute. So this is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lines, and this is 6. So this is about like 2/3 of this. So you can see what I'm talking about here, right? So this is the kind of thing that I would probably sit and pour over the band descriptors to kind of really sit and analyze it, and maybe even the more detailed descriptors that we have to actually determine what kind of score I would give it for task achievement. So those are the things that I want you to think about. Okay, vocabulary was great. Grammar was great. One thing I want to look at really quickly is your cohesive devices because you did have a mistake. Okay, even at a 7, you're allowed to make a mistake. You had that one here. Um, and then here was another issue of cohesion using the word it instead of this. It should have been this. All right, we already talked about that. Let me see, but what I really want to look at is your front position markers. Just let me check really fast. Moreover, yeah, you didn't have a lot of them, so you're fine as far as that's concerned. So, yeah, you had a couple of mistakes with cohesion, but again, even at a band 7, you're allowed those. So I would say that if there was a weakness, it would probably have been task achievement. All right, let's keep going. We've got world food consumption. Lots of meat, lots of fish. Okay, not a lot of rice in the world. Let's see. No time limit. Interesting. All right. The pie chart provided illustrates a global consumption rate of 7 primary sources of food in 2014. Specifically, great, you named them. Good job. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Perfect. That was smart. Overall, meat and fish represented more than half of the world's total consumption, while the other food categories were unevenly consumed by individuals. Great. Nice. As mentioned before, animal proteins were the main energy source of people in 2014, with almost 2/3 of the total share. Great, good. Consumers' first preference was meat with 31.4, whereas fish represented the second favorite protein source for humans, 27.9 of its share. Excellent. Again, I would have said with regard to because people always confuse these. For me, that's the safest one to use. So, with regard to carbohydrates, individuals show different consumption strategies. Where I don't know if the word strategies is great. How about different consumption, just percentages? Or you know what another word is that I've never seen in any of your task ones? Figure. The word figure is fantastic because it's a catch-all. It goes anywhere. Okay. So whether it's a percentage or a number or a unit or, any one of these numbers that we just were like, oh, I don't know what to call it. The word figure is great. So you could have said here, show different consumption figures, where the most popular one was cereals with 11.7, closely followed by fruits with 10.6, and vegetables with 10.5. Finally, the least selected group of food belonging to the carbohydrates category as well was rice with 2.5 of its share, followed by bread with 5.5. Okay, I like this. It was good. You can see that you're just over 153 words. I do want to make one suggestion. Um, You reported. You did. I can't say that you didn't report. You did. But let's talk about how you reported. So you said 2/3, which is fine. And then 31, 27.9. Okay, great. Then 11, 11, 10.6, 10.5. And then 2.5, 5.5. So why am I telling you this? Because you're not doing anything with these figures. You really literally just kind of like just presented them in a rather simplistic way. Now, why am I telling you this? Did I like your task one? Yeah, I did. I thought it was really good. I thought it read really easily. I thought you organized it well. But because I know that you're aiming for a high score, listen to what I'm going to tell you carefully. if you have a really good task 1, like let's say you get like an 8 in task achievement, it might make up for a low score in your task 2. Okay. And I think this had the potential for being a very high scoring task 1. So what do I mean when I said you just kind of like just gave the numbers kind of like in a list? That's what you did. I would have liked to see you do something with these numbers. What do I mean? I mean, you could have said that this was 31.4, but fish was, God, I can't do math at late at night, 3 point something less. Do you see where I'm going with this? So just do a little math here. Or you could have said something like, with regard to carbohydrates, the most popular one was just under 12% at 11.7 specifically. With the next most popular, about 1% behind each. Okay, so you're doing something, you're showing some sort of handling of these figures. Okay, I'm not just giving you numbers like a computer down the list, but I'm actually doing something with them. I'm showing you that I can manipulate these numbers. All right, so you heard what I just said. I said 11.7, or I did that thing like just under 12%, and then I was more specific. And then the next two were 1% less. So yeah, a tiny bit of math, not really anything earth-shattering. I do think that making those kinds of changes and showing that kind of handling of figures makes a difference. Okay? So, very good in terms of language, very good in terms of grammar and vocabulary. I thought all of that was nicely done. Remember what I told you about the word figures? You can use it instead of percentage, you can use it instead of number, unit, anything. So it's a great catch-all word to use. But I would like to see a little more sophisticated handling of the figures. Okay, so some good news, some bad news. The bad news is that we've come to the end of this set. So this is the last essay we have together. The good news is that you will get a link on how you, again, I can't speak at night. You will get a link telling you how we can continue with more essay corrections. I don't remember if anywhere in our communication you said when your exam is. If you do have a little time and you're up for preparing more essays, I definitely would like to see more from you. I think that the one thing I'm really happy is that I see you applying the feedback I give you, and I'm really, really happy about that. So I would like to see what you do with more essays. Okay. So if that's something you can do, if you have time, if you're able to, I definitely encourage you. And I hope we get to see more of your work soon. Okay. Good luck.